Well, some fast forwarding has to happen to help try to make this clip under half an hour long. We'll see just how much fast forwarding I can throw in and if I might need to just give this clip an abrupt ending. Anyway, it looks like the Admiral is going to repeat himself a few times here. Annoying, but hopefully he won't be as obnoxious as Gandreda was when she was faking being a Marine who needed help. Now, let's get this tram out of here and see where it leads. Hopefully close to where we need to be, but that might just be wishful thinking on my part. Right, you've ridden one tram, you've ridden them all, and it's not like they're gonna give things different animations. It's the same train going through the same tunnel with not even the smallest of cosmetic differences, so it's easy enough for me to just fast forward through without even the slightest bit of guilt. Okay, bit of an odd animation for us to get to the other side of this device. Anyway, we're on the 3rd floor of that area with the only functional elevator, and look at that. We're in for some action here since we have what we need to break through this line of defense. This would probably feel less annoying to me if I could feel any respect for the pirates in this game, but they just don't have any agency of their own anymore. They've been downgraded to Dark Samus's puppets. Little better than how run this was, but we're not treating them with any sympathy since they were hostiles to us before that anyway. And great. Now I wish that we got to see fighting between the assimilated pirates and the non-assimilated pirates. Not that we ever got to see anything like that on Aether and the Ing, who have possession as kind of a big trait. We're taking pirates left and right. That kind of thing should have been a hint for the game designers. If they didn't feel that enemies fighting other enemies was something they could pull off with the game's engines, then why would they write in at least a few full-scale battle situations that would have something like that as a possibility? Hell, why have so many moments in the game where the story talks about massive scale encounters when the game at its core is designed with Samus going in solo? For a moment, I thought the game would make us get injured by that just to spite me. Outside of the broken-down research space station in the first Metroid Prime, have we ever seen small swarming enemies that felt good in this series? At least back then, the parasites we ran into before the Parasite Queen did a good job of helping to set the scene. These ones are just here for the sake of it. Wait, just walking into this outdoors room is enough to be considered a completed objective? Layers of Flastor. Thank you for confirming we have to go in that direction and you really don't want us over there. Not that we have any other directions to go in around here at the moment. There are remarkably few rooms with multiple doors that lead to multiple hallways in this game. Again, the level design just doesn't quite feel Metroid enough for me. Wish I could feel worried that there are some enemies popping up out of nowhere just to make this fight last a little longer. I somehow doubt that we're gonna have to deal with enough of them for our health to fully drain, though. Not with the sheer amount of health we've got. Still, feels like they're doing a good amount of damage to us. They're not completely ignorable. I suppose that's pretty respectable for an encounter against a bunch of repeating enemies in a Metroid game. Guess we're dealing with another wave of enemies, not used to dealing with multiple waves in Metroid. Oh, it's not the first time we've seen multiple waves in this specific game. Seriously, why is it a surprise to me if this isn't the first time it's happened to us? Right, so the next batch of enemies opened the way forward. Not too inclined to leave just yet, though, since there's a lore entry to read, even if the lore in this game just hasn't been doing it for me. Yeah, we're in better shape at the end of the fight than we were at the start. Definitely something that makes the deaths of the enemies feel pretty meaningless. And it's never a good sign that I'm feeling any kind of sympathy for the pirates. And not the kind of sympathy where they're being mind-controlled by some eldritch horror or something. I'm just rooting for the bad guys because they've had such a hard time and have so few actual accomplishments to their name in this far in the game. The galactic threat we're fighting against in this game, that had 2 other games have built to try to gain some momentum, feels like the underdog to me. Yeesh. Again, we've got lore entries that talk about conflict on the world before we ever got here, and I kinda wish we got to see that instead of just read about it. The lore in the previous 2 games felt like they painted in the sketch of the world around us, and the lore in this game just makes me feel like the worlds we're on are downright hollow, sometimes repeating themselves. How much of that is because this game has multiple planets we go to instead of being stuck on a single one from beginning to end? How much of that problem is just the fact that Nintendo seems to feel, more often than not, that story doesn't really matter, gameplay does? And with my dislike of the motion control stuff, again, my opinion of this game feels pretty middling at best to me. And I hate that I feel like that, especially with how much I like all the other Metroid games I've LP'd. Again, by a lot of objective measurements, this is a nice course correction from the mess that was Metroid Prime 2. But in the moment, right now, I can't help feeling that I'd prefer to be dealing with that game, even with its various bits of bullshit, over the storytelling and gameplay mechanics of this one. Okay, we've got another tram room. And according to the map, I somehow missed the objective we came here for. Son of a bitch, we need another upgrade in order to get where we need to go? Again, that's not really something I should really be surprised by, considering this is indeed a Metroid game that sort of path blocking is very common in. It's kind of a franchise trait. I'm just in the mode of thought where I want the game to get on with the ending. We're 31 clips in, and considering how many clips we went through where the obstacles in our way didn't really last long, sometimes to the point that it felt like they weren't really there, kinda hard not to have the expectation that we're just gonna keep sweeping on through from point to point. Well, this is new territory, which of course makes fast-forwarding through it just that little bit more unappealing to me at the moment. Definitely gonna make it a little more annoying for me in the editing process of keeping this under half an hour. Bloody hell. I kinda wish I felt some hype for what we have to deal with later on this planet. But considering how the first major battle sequence went at the start of the game on Norian, and how uninterested I was then, I doubt that the next big one is gonna make me go holy shit as we see it. Again, I am way too used to warfare in various games. We already killed the last of the 3 named hunters who were supposed to be our allies. Not that the game really did much of anything to hype up Gore or Gondreda. The only reason I'm looking forward to the next Ridley fight is because of all the damn good encounters with him in the franchise as a whole. Nothing that this game specifically has done, though the freefall fight against him early on was a nice treat. And the only boss to come that's had a good amount of build to make the future fight feel more satisfying is Dark Samus. She may not be the same Dark Samus as the one we fought in the previous game, and to be honest, maybe they had the right idea to try to change her from that, since there's only so much you can do with a vengeful Jason Voorhees-style immortal being of anger. Still, it's hard not to feel annoyed that her characterization in this game feels a bit out of nowhere for the series in my mind. And it's not like she was given any lines of dialogue in any of the games before now. She is competently done as a final boss, but given enough of a presence that it feels like everything you do is a strike against her and all that, that doesn't really make her feel amazing, just adequate for her role. The first problem I got is that she doesn't really seem to have any actual goals for Rio and Elysia, so disrupting her operations there felt meaningless, which isn't helped by how hollow those planets felt to me overall. The second, well, we've kind of established that Dark Samus is functionally immortal. She came back after being completely disintegrated before the destruction of Dark Aether, and her particles were still stuck in Dark Aether when that alternate version of that planet ceased to exist. This game has done absolutely nothing to tell us how we're supposed to finish her for good. We're basically just supposed to take her down, then hope that after we do some random bullshit on the Source Ball Phazon, she's done for good. And that means the single biggest reason why we never saw Dark Samus again in any game past Metroid Prime 3 is because the 2D games didn't take this bit of continuity into account, and there's a chance she could show up again for Metroid Prime 4. Okay, not the best looking drilling animation I've seen over the years, still. So long as the job is done, I'm not really gonna complain. Just remove those rocks and let's see what's on the other side of them. Okay, bit of a boost ramp for us to get to the next door. Before we check that way, let's see what happens after we hit the other button here. Sure, I know the drill is going to reveal another preset section we could travel through, but hey, may as well do it now instead of wait to do it later. Okay, looks like this is gonna get us another minor upgrade. Doesn't look like it'll be all that troublesome to reach once the wall has been dug out. Okay, maybe the superheated stone will be a problem. Or it will cool down before we even get over there and there's no problem whatsoever. Bloody hell! Can I just make up my own mind on the matter? Do I like this game in comparison to Metroid Prime 2 because it keeps things going relatively smoothly? Or is it at its core worse because there's less exploration needed and even fewer actual puzzles to solve? I just cannot count the motion control stuff as part of the puzzle design since, well, far too many of the motion control things are supposed to be pretty easy on the initial console the game was released on. They are only a pain in the ass for me because I am using an emulator, not an actual Wii system. Hell, there are a few tidbits that I enjoyed back when I still had the actual Wii in this game that I'm kind of annoyed I have no means of showing in this LP. Things like the way Samus's shipboard scanner slowly registers how much more corrupted Samus is becoming as the game goes on. I may feel that the whole us getting corrupted thing isn't all that amazing for the story. It's hard to fully pull off something actually being detrimental to the player character's health in a video game, where you're supposed to become more and more capable as the game goes on. Still, the scanner was one of the few bits of in-game lore that got me pulled into the story of the game in some way. A way to actually see that Samus is slowly getting worse as the story goes on, and she has some actually pretty worrying signs beneath her armor. But we are completely unable to get a reading on her because I can't do the precision crap I need to be able to get it to work right. So all we've got to read as the game goes on are the various little lore entries on 3 separate planets where things went to hell long before Samus arrived, and nothing Samus does is going to help the locals in any way. Hell, we are explicitly going to bring a fleet to assault the pirate homeworld, something that feels very much like it doesn't fit in the Metroid franchise to me. Regardless of if the pirates we don't see, who aren't part of the Dark Samus's brain-controlled army, might appreciate us destroying the seed and removing the corruption from their planet, things are only going to get objectively worse for the locals. And again, it's funny that that's one of my issues with this game. That we aren't doing anything to actually help make the planets we adventure through in this game more livable, outside of just removing the Phazon seeds. Feels like I'm praising the Luminoth-Ing War from the second game. Again, I absolutely loved that bit in the first Metroid Prime, where we killed the plant boss and the prevailing liquid in the area instantly went from being acid to water, making the planet feel more habitable and making things easier for the wildlife, whether they were trying to kill us or not. Samus was raised by space elves. Why don't the 3D games lean on that more, since the games are so much longer than the 2D ones? While some snippets and cutscenes give her a bit of more personality with her body language, she's still pretty task-oriented, which isn't a problem in the first 2 Metroid Primes or the 2D games, outside of the rare moments in Fusion and Dread where she speaks. But the way this game was designed, you'd almost think that Samus was pretty similar to the Master Chief from Halo, which is its own brand of hilarious because the Metroid community kinda didn't like the comparisons between the two when the first 2 Metroid Primes came out, and I'm pretty sure Monty made the Haloid fan animation around this point. Yeah. I should probably drop that sort of rant for the moment and focus more on the floating monster that's making things just a little more inconvenient for us to get from point A to point B. At least I assume it's a monster. The design doesn't really look right for any of the ship designs we've seen in this game before now. It's too biological. But the way it moves and the way it tries to inconvenience us by shooting bridges long after we have the screw attack makes me feel it's got a pilot of some kind. It just looks distinctly different from everything else we've seen in the game so far. And I can't think of anything else on this or any other planet in the game that shares that aesthetic. Granted, we're 31 clips into the game. I'm pretty sure I forgot a good number of the monsters we fought our way through so far. But I'm pretty sure I would remember something that shared some design similarities with that. The closest I can think of are those small walking turret things we've been dealing with since all the way back when we were leaving the Olympus. And that feels like a bit of a stretch to me. Probably not all that important. It's just something that spent a good amount of time on the clock as I talked about it. It was either that or make a Death Star joke as we suddenly run through a place with green lights coming out of nowhere. How I wish I could give a damn about us suddenly running into a room with green death lasers coming out of nowhere. Okay, guess the green lasers are an indication that we're gonna gain our next major upgrade. And with that, we should be able to finally call the fleet in. Not that I'm expecting us to be amazed by what the fleet manages to do when it gets here. Sorry. It's going to be awkward to reactivate any electrical devices since we haven't had the electrical gun since the first Metroid Prime. Doesn't really look like there's anything in the wall for us to shoot it at, like back in the first Metroid Prime. Why did I even bother checking that? Oh yeah, because I decided to play through the Wii version of Metroid Prime 1 at the same time as recording this game, and frankly, I liked this control scheme better in that game than this one. Why the hell is that? This game was explicitly designed with this control scheme in mind, while Metroid Prime 1 was made expecting things to be more tank-styled. Anyway, seems we have a gimmicky encounter before we're allowed to gain the next upgrade. It's certainly not a boss fight or mini-boss since we've killed this variety of pirate quite a few times. The only real question is what the gimmick is in here. So periodically the room is going to try to suck things in, and we're supposed to make sure it sucks in the pirates instead of Samus. Kinda makes it feel just a little bit more ridiculous that the pirates are sending people in indefinitely until we get the job done in here. But again, the game doesn't do a good job of being especially immersive. Even in comparison to other Metroid games, it just doesn't have the same atmosphere going for it that the other games I've LP'd have had. As much as I like the animation of the pirates trying desperately to avoid getting sucked into that thing, it doesn't change the fact that this fight feels pretty pointless to me. I really wish I could just drop my overall annoyance at the game and just enjoy the various little details that we see here and there. But even visually speaking, I just feel like I preferred the first Metroid Prime. Also liked the music more in the first Metroid Prime, which is funny since this game is literally abbreviated as MP3. Well, it certainly didn't take long to send that guy into the beam. And I screwed up, not destroying one of the 4 things when we had a chance. Mildly annoying since these guys are constantly going to hyper mode in this fight, and doing quite a job burning through our health. I'd prefer to go down because the things we're fighting are something especially dangerous. Not because the gimmick of the fight kept us going until we just couldn't keep going on the impromptu gauntlet. Still, it's certainly been a while since our health has been this low. So, some kudos, I suppose. Right. Just have to send one more bastard up there and we're done. It shouldn't take much longer from here. Really? So that guy walking into the beam on his own is an instant kill, but doesn't count towards letting us finish this encounter. Not that we really had anything to do with him walking there, but still, I feel a bit cheated. With that, we're done with this fight. I'd say gaining this upgrade is as good a place to end the clip as any since, well, I can't really wait for another save point unless I break my half-hour rule. And, really? Only 20 commandos so far? I could have sworn we'd taken down more considering how many pirates we've killed on the pirate homeworld. And just why didn't they give the pirate homeworld an actual name? It kinda highlights how throwaway the location as a whole is.